Namaste, and a very warm welcome to all the viewers. We have an amazing guest, a renowned and much celebrated sound designer with us, Sri Sai Shravanam. This interview is hosted by the Himalayan School of Traditional Dance. Himalayan School of Traditional Dance is a global initiative founded by Brahmarishi Mohanji, a world-renowned spiritual leader, to spread the core values of our culture, tradition through dance across the world. Our distinguished guest for today, Sri Sai Shravanam, is a skilled musician, music producer, composer, academician, and an entrepreneur who has created a benchmark quality in all his endeavors with a single-minded devotion towards music. Uniquely recognized as one of the few classically trained sound engineer in India, Sai Shravanam has developed his talents through years of experience in recording music, bringing musicians the masterful chemistry necessary to produce their best. He has been recognized with several awards, including Yugadi Puraskar Awards, Sangeet Natak Academy Award, Madhura Murali Puraskar, the Best Soundtrack Award for the movie Life of Pi, credited for his great work in the blockbuster movie The Man Who Knew Infinity, to mention a few. He's also the founder of the Resound India, one of the top recording facilities known for its world-class blend of sound technology and creativity, and is India's top-rated professional audio production facility. Hearty welcome, Sai Shravanamana.
Namaskar.
Namaskaram. We also have with us Mohanji Acharya, Srimati Satya Shivakumar, Global Member HSTD, who will be conducting the interview along with me. Over to you, Satya.
Yeah, thank you, Radha. That was an amazing introduction of Sai Shravanam and his contribution. My first question to you is, sound engineering is a blend of art and science. So through this confluence, you can create amazing music that can help people relax, rejuvenate, and recharge their lives. So, can you tell me how your journey started as a sound engineer?
There was no start to my journey or any kind of initiation that I did it myself. To be very honest, I was very inclined to music right from my younger days. So I used to play the tabla. I used to watch the advertisement of Taj Mahal and be very inspired with Zakir Bhai playing the tabla. And I was very drawn towards the instrument and I started playing the tabla. As I grew older, I was in school and, we are all a part of culturals and my school was very, very active with these, and orchestral music used to be made, choir used to sing. So I was very, very initiated towards music arrangement and composition, apart from playing the tabla. So I had a fantastic school principal, teachers who encouraged me to concentrate on music rather than what happens nowadays with academics. So I was literally cajoled by all of them. I cherished my school days just doing music, hardly studying. So that led me to go more and more towards that. Music drew me more closer to it rather than me saying I went towards it. And as I was just getting into college, that was when I was very, very interested. I was a computer science student. So very interested in making music through computer. And I started recording to make my own music, my own songs. I used to record a lot of bhajans for Sai Baba. So I used to do it all by myself. And later did it happen that I started doing most of it myself. I would compose, I would play the keyboard, I would play the tabla, I would arrange the music, I would record it myself, then make it a final product. And I could understand that I was able to do all of this without my effort to know that this is something that should be done. You understand? Most of the times we have a certain way of going and trying to achieve a goal, or you want to be something. To be very honest, I never wanted to be anything. I was just following whatever was taking me. I was just like an abandoned boat in a stream. Wherever it was going, I was just drifting along with it. But I had the confidence that whatever I was doing, the place I would go would be something that would give me joy and happiness. I was never worried about where I was going or what was drawing me. I was just enjoying because it was art, it was music. So as I said, the journey, I am just a witness to the journey, to be very, very honest. Many people ask me this question, but I don't have a core answer as to this is what I wanted to do. I always wished to play the tabla, but I ended up as a sound designer. Of course, I do play the tabla now. I make music now. I do a lot of things. But all of this gives me joy. All of this gives me happiness. And more than anything else, I'm an enabler for so many artists. Everybody has a creative fire in them. And I'm very, very lucky to have some of the best in the world who come to me. And I end up becoming an enabler for them, more than being a sound designer or whatever, trying to understand what they want, trying to give in whatever best I could, trying to catch whatever best they have, and try to, be a catalyst between art and artist. That's the best way I can put it. So I'm very lucky to be in there. And that's how I ended up being in my studio. But the fact of the matter is, I was guided by Sai Baba to do something in my house in music, because he said you must take care of your mother. So it was just one small guidance that led me to completely work in this is my studio where I'm sitting. It's not a Zoom background, it's my real studio. So this is the place that I work in daily. So I see it like my altar, and my journey continues.
Very, very beautiful, Anna, to listen to this. And the way you ended, it's like my altar. It's yeah, so true.
Yes, it is.
In the light of all your observations, the viewers will be really interested to know the projects that you cherish the most.
Every project is what gives me I'm always awed by every project. I'm not able to say that there was one project that really gave me happiness or whatever, because to be very truthful, the result of whatever you do ends up giving you something. But how would I put it? It's like a mother giving birth to her children. Every project is like a baby born. There are no biasing. You just can't say one is better than the other. It may so happen that one may be very intelligent, the other may be very artistic, one could be in sports, and there is no comparison. So when projects happen in my studio, it's incredible. It's out of nowhere, a very beautiful something. When all these amazing artists come together, the best of them are all captured, and I end up weaving them together. And it's absolutely incredible that every project has inspired me. I'm in awe the way everything starts. I literally worship Rajkumar Bharati, because he has taught me so much philosophy through music. And he used to tell me, Tane nadakum, things will just happen by itself. So, and it ends up becoming a very, very beautiful project at the end. And I would say the only difference between the projects are the one that is socially very successful or marketed very well, and the ones that not many people know about. You understand? So as projects, everything is my favorite. Everything is wonderful. Whatever I do, whether it's a voiceover, whether it's a wildlife film, whether it's dance, whether it's music, sometimes poetry. I have some great poets who come to my studio to read their poetry. And it's incredible. Everything is incredible. You can't compare. The only difference that comes is the way it's marketed, who the artist is, how well the project is known, how good the film is, etc., etc. Like Life of Pi really gave me a visiting card. People would always introduce me with that because it was such a successful film. And I played a fair role in getting the Indian music in the film recorded. So that became a visiting card when I least expected something. I didn't know what Life of Pi was. I didn't know what project was happening. It was just something like one another interaction with another foreign client and project happened. And all of a sudden, one day you're all on the newspapers, So that kind of thing gives you excitement. That kind of thing gives you an experience of happiness, an experience of pressure, an experience of learning, unlearning, how to rejoice, how not to rejoice. It teaches you everything. So there is no one particular project. I love working for music. That's all. Anything is fine.
Yeah, that was such a beautiful thing to contemplate on. Tane nadakum. It'll all happen. It's so true in everyone's journey. So there's a guiding light, and it's propelling us on this, journey, and it's enabling so many beautiful projects, as you rightly said. How so many artists you're bringing together art and artists. That's wonderful. That's wonderful to. It'll inspire many people. Your name is Sai Shravanam. Shravanam means to listen, and it is one of the extolled form of Navavida Bhakti. So, as a sound designer, you will know the importance of listening to the sounds. So, can you tell us some the practical applications of listening, as well as how it is useful in life as well? How we are always uh, in a hurry to talk, but do we listen to the sounds? So we want to know from you how important is listening.
Listening is life. Listening is life because it's not merely sound. You have to listen to yourself. You have to listen to your conscience. You have to listen to things around you. You have to listen to your feeling. You have to listen to your intellect. You have to listen to things happening around you, which is also something like music or somebody speaking to you. Listening is actually life, not a part of life. Listening is life. If you don't listen, then I don't think there's a step you can go forward in whatever sadhana you are in whatever journey you are in your life. When it comes to sound, yes, listening is very important, but I tell people observation is more important than just listening. People, listening are to be seen in two ways. One is to listen through your ear. The other is to listen through your heart. Even music is something that you have to listen through your heart. It's not merely ear is an instrument, but listening comes from within. Listening is not merely about sound. It would be very wrong for us to say that listening is through the ear and you focus and it's an aural thing, it's a sense. No, it's much beyond. And you say Navavida Bhakti, they won't use a word like Shravanam so easily. So it's very deep, it's very spiritual. Only if you're inclined to it you could understand, or we could try to make people understand, but that would take you 1 hour, and I don't think I'm not mature enough to talk about Shravanam. But I was incidentally named by, again, Swami. Baba named me Shravanam when I never had my name until 4 years. I used to be fondly called Pintu in my family. I never had a name because my mother was very bent upon the fact that only Baba should name me. So I ended up getting the name Shravanam. He named me. Later did I realize that the name was what I was meant for. It didn't even strike me until he visited my studio and he told me, "Per correcta irka, I named you Shravanam and all your life is Shravanam." So that's when you realize that some things are meant to happen. And how important listening is, as I told you, it's not about priority. It's not, when you say how important, then the word priority comes in, important, unimportant. Listening is life. you always have to keep yourself open, not with your ear, but overall you have to keep listening to whatever is happening around you. That is when you open up. And in sound, my job in the studio is only to listen, because even if it's good, I have to be very unjudgmental and just listen. If it is bad, I still have to be unjudgmental, but I will force judgment and correct it. But when something is very good, I cannot stop with, yes, this is good. I will still have to see if it is going to get better and better and better. And for that, you really have to be disconnected with whatever work you're doing. Say, for example, an amazing artist is coming and performing in my studio. They may be amazing. They may be a Padma Award winner or a Grammy Award winner. But my job is not about to recognize who they are. My job is the note coming from their instrument or voice right? Does it deserve the place that it should? Like suppose we say Swarasthanam or in a Layam. Does it stay where it is? So my job is to completely wither away from all the whims and fancies that people have and just listen to what is given to me. It doesn't matter from whom it comes. All that matters to me is, does it make sense to whatever is the product, that whatever is the child that we are making now. So listening has been my fundamental right from the moment I keep my microphone. I have to listen to somebody play and see where the microphone should be kept, until you all listen to whatever I do as to how you should all listen and how my mix should be. So listening is my life.
Beautiful, Anna. Very beautiful. So, as a child prodigy in tabla and a keen sense to sounds in music, can you share with us the journey in working with music artists?
Yeah. Where can I start? Where can I end? It's just a lot. Just that for me to even think of which to pick up and speak is... See, one thing is, with all artists, you're constantly learning. With music artists, for example, see, calling music artists and calling them as dance artists or calling them painter is all that we do, because we have categories for art. That's all. But my experience with artists is that that it is not coming from them, it's coming from somewhere else. Because I've seen that phenomenal artists suddenly can completely black out with absolutely no creativity, and the performance can be horrible. And I have seen absolutely no artists of mediocrity in their expression in music suddenly coming out with incredible stuff inside the studio. And they themselves don't know. If you ask them to play it again, they don't know. They can't. That is when you realize it's not coming from them. If it has to come from the artist, they should be able to reproduce it, right? Suppose somebody sings a phrase, a music artist sings a phrase. If I ask them to do it again, it should come, right? It won't come. They will say, play it again. Let me listen to what I sang. And they will listen to it and then again sing it. If it came from you, you should know what you did. That's when I tell people it doesn't come from you. It comes from somewhere. You listen to it, again reproduce it. That's when you become an instrument. So this very fundamental is what music taught me. Artists taught me that, oh, wow, this is not something that actually comes from us. It just comes from somewhere. We are just a medium. And great artists teach you a lot about what it is to be mature, what it is to take art into the brain, process it, classical music, for example, process it, but still hold on to the heart. Don't leave it. Don't leave the disconnect. Process it, make it better, 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 and then bring it out through your heart. These are these top line artists where they can really process whatever they get as a gift, put it perfectly and give it back. unfailingly, all the top artists are incredible. Otherwise you just can't be where you are, it's beyond marketing sometimes. So artists teach me that. And there are experiences with artists where, you also unlearn a lot. Fantastic artists are very different when you deal with them in person, and they are very, very different when you deal with them through art. This artist taught me, to be very honest. And this is not something where we have to see it as a critical point. This is very uplifting. This is something that you realize, oh, wow. We neither learn to see them as an artist or see them in person, but just be non-judgmental. Artists teach me that. So I'm not able to pinpoint to the point of musical artists, your experience with musical artists. They all are musical things. You told me this talk is more on spirituality and my journey. That's why I'm tending towards this. So what happens is, there are anecdotes. For example, there was once Karaikudi Mani who was playing Mridangam in my studio, and there was a power cut. So he was wearing headphones and he was listening to a metronome and playing a solo. Okay, so you know how difficult it is to play with a machine. I didn't realize that when the power went off, the headphones amplifiers also went off. So he was not hearing the machine. But in my room, the power was there because of the UPS, and I was listening to the machine. More than 4 to 5 minutes, he continuously played, and he was bang on the metronome, perfect. And then he stopped and he said, "Nappa kadula romanariya and the click kekala. I didn't hear the metronome." I said, "Eppo sir kekala? 4-5 nimishama kekala pa abdinar." Oh wow! For 4 or 5 minutes, he didn't hear the metronome, and he was bang on beat. I mean, I'm a tabla player myself, and if I would stop, if click stops on my headphones and I continue to keep playing, I may be in tempo for 10 seconds, 12 seconds, and then we will drift. An artist with so much, with practice, somebody who meditates laya, somebody who breathes mridangam, you realize that they have gone beyond human, They can outbeat a machine. So they teach me something like that. And I learned from musical artists also incredible levels of creativity. They can portray stories. They can change stories. They can change themselves. Their whole personality changes in their expression. That's when you realize, oh, wow, they are not actually music artists. They are painters, they are book writers, they are poets, they are dancers. Sometimes you see, the whole body moves to their singing. So it's incredible. I don't have a direct answer, but all artists teach me daily.
Yeah, that again is that we cannot compartmentalize art. Very true.
No.
It's an ocean. Once you dive into it, it's an ocean, and they seamlessly blend all art forms. We just, for our understanding, we categorize as music and dance, but there is really no barrier for an art. That I truly agree. And again, such a beautiful explanation how we're learning so much, from. And the one thing that I really enjoyed is how an artist processes so much in the brain, but when it's delivered, it's coming out through the heart. That's when the real connection is made. That's really true.
You will actually know it when an artist is giving out of their brain or their heart. That aha moment comes only when they give it from their heart.
Yeah.
And fantastic artists can actually give that aha moment continuously. Yeah.
So devotion is also like that. Mohanji says, connect to master, connect to them with your heart, not with your mind. Because when you connect with the mind, then so many questions come up, doubts creep in. But when you're connected with the heart, then nothing can affect it, and it will be very strong. So I really enjoyed that. Um, as you said, you've collaborated with great artists to make sounds come alive. Can you tell us more about Life of Pi, the movie of Oscar fame?
Okay, so what happened was there was this one day Bombay Jayashree Akka called me up and she said, Sai, I have to record some song and it's something in the US and they want some remote location recording. I have to sing from here and they want to know something. It's a very technical thing. I'll connect you to somebody. Why don't you speak to them? And we will see if this can happen. I could only think of you. So very graciously, she called me up and I was like, okay. And I connected to I received an email that said, that had someone's name at fox.com. And I was like, oh, wow, it's from Fox Studios. Wow. We all see movies and we see 20th Century Fox and we're like, okay, this is a big movie. And somebody wrote to me asking me if I have a studio with this facility, that facility, etc., etc. To be very honest, I had no facility. I just had good rooms like this. I had good microphones, but I did not have this remote location recording software, etc., etc. When I searched online, it showed me that it was a very expensive software that I can't afford at that point in time, just for this one little work. So I wrote a very honest email to them saying that I would love to do this work, but unfortunately, I don't have the software and it would be very expensive for me to buy this. But if you want, I can record the singer and send it to you if you give me the files. So they wrote to me saying that if we give you the software, would you be able to do it? And then I gave in my fullest, meaning I had to learn it. I had to literally learn a technology, which was not easy. And I had 24 hours to do that. I still remember I didn't sleep the whole night. I was reading on the internet as to what this was, how when somebody sings here, somebody could record it. This is way back, many years back. How will it sync? There will be, see, the Zoom itself, we have so much delay. How would all this happen through the internet? That too high quality audio. They want a video, they want an audio, they want to control my machine. Like, man, it's just off my head, How are you feeling when I'm saying you have to suddenly do this tomorrow? So that was the kind of pressure I had. But I wrote to them saying that if I had it all, I can pull this off. That's what I wrote to them. That positivity kind of hooked on to them and they said, okay, we will buy you the license for you, will you record? And we trust your work. We know what you do. So they gave me the license themselves. I installed it. In 4 or 5 hours, I got a very high-speed line from, at that time, BSNL, and they gave me a line. And I got my studio up and running. The tests were done. They said, you have to test it. We ping a studio to another studio. I still remember, I didn't have food for 30 hours, 32 hours. I didn't even drink water. I was being called again and again for food, and I was like, no, I don't have time. I have to record. So 30 hours, 32 hours of non-stop looking into the computer and trying to ping London and test the session, etc., etc. And the next day, this song, which was nominated for the Oscar, the Lullaby song, was recorded in my studio. Bombay Jayashree ji sang it. And that was when things were opening up. Oh, wow, we could actually, somebody sitting there in the US and they are singing here. And it went off so well. They were so excited that they gave me a few more sessions of adding the Indian instruments in the film. And they said, you were very committed, you were incredible in your work, and the files sound great. And they gave me one another project to record in the same film of adding percussion instruments throughout the movie, etc. And another artist came in, Selva Ganesh. He had come in. So reels were sent, and to the music that Michael Dana sir had done. We were creatively adding layers to it, and I thought it was a great experience, but I never knew it was such a big film or it would become a big film. And we finished it. It was all over. They asked me for a bill, and I sent a bill. And my conscience said that just because it's an American company or a big project, I should not be bloating up the bill. So I treated it like one another Indian client, and I sent them a very simple bill, something that I think they did not expect. It was a very, very small amount. They wrote to me saying that, Sai, we have to redo the invoice. We will send you an invoice and you please sign it. So I thought I wrote something wrong and I overpriced it, and I was a bit guilty. I felt very bad. And I kept telling my father, I should have asked someone and sent a bill. This is a very big project. I don't know. But anyway. And they sent me a bill, and that was probably 15 times more than what I quoted. And they said, just sign it. I wrote to them saying, for whom is this? And this is for what? They said, this is for your hard work. We would like to pay you the way we would have done if it was recorded in the US. And you did fantastic job and your quality was incredible. So we like the way you worked, and this is what we want to give you. So even that came in abundance without my expectation. More than anything else, all of a sudden, I received one day a call from the vice president of music division in Fox saying that, Sai, the song is nominated for the Oscars and the film soundtrack is nominated for the Oscar. I'm like, what? Which one? You know, I still remember I was in the car and I was like, when I received this call, this was incredible. So that's when you realize that it's not the project, it's not anything. Whatever you do it sincerely. And probably God will decide what the fruits are. That was my experience with Life of Pi.
Anna, more than the wonderful accomplishments, your passion, your dedication, hard work, what is more striking is your humility and, the ability to stay grounded. This is nothing but a reflection of your devotion to Bhagwan. So in connection with that, you're blessed by Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, who has been the guiding light in your life. Can you share with us your insights on sound, silence, and spirituality?
There's no sound without silence. Silence is the fundamental. If you never knew what silence was, how do you know what sound is? So if you don't hear a sound, you'll never know what a silence is, right? So they are married to each other. And spirituality is a combination of sound and silence, to be very honest. All of us think that attaining silence is okay, I am not here trying to give a gyan or whatever. I'm also learning aspirant. But when I see through sound and when I see my daily life, you realize that it's incredible. Only through sound you can go into silence. When there is noise inside you, you would want to seek for some quietness, right? When your mind is super busy, that's when you really want to shut off. And when you're completely shut off, noise is the one that takes you back to, oh, wow, this and that. And we humans, I don't know what is to be a spiritual master, because I don't know what happens inside the head. But I know for people like me, sound and silence is the noise and the silence that is inside us spiritually, And without that kind of a sound and noise, you will never understand spirituality. It's very important that you undergo the hardships. It's important that you have the noise. It's important that you have the tug of war. It's important to have varieties of emotions inside you. And then later realize that, okay, it will all funnel down to something which is very quiet. And that silence actually makes you realize the vastness of sound. Say, for example, when I play the tabla, when I record artists, it's beautiful when they are creative, okay? But when it keeps on happening for some time, and there is this silence, you're like, wow, oof, you don't want to hear that noise. When you're not understanding the silence, you'll keep wanting the sound more. So what happens is, you'll keep on listening to music, you'll keep on, like Tanpura, for example. I dread the sound of Tanpura because daily morning I start with it, end with it. Appa, Tanpura sound, because I really want that silence. But the same Tanpura sound is peace for somebody else. They are calmed down by Tanpura. There is therapy that happens with Tanpura, etc. So it is so individual, no? But when I've had a lot of silence, and then when Tanpura comes in, I'm like, wow. When I daily listen to so much Tanpura, I'm like, Vandampa, I don't want this Tanpura. So sound and silence are very married. They are the same. They are the same. They are not different. The world is full of polarity. You have man, you have woman, you have light, you have dark. You have good, there is bad. So polarity is nature. Polarity is creation. Polarity is beautiful. So sound and silence is polar, no? So sometimes we mistake. Okay, silence is the ultimate truth. Probably yes, but I have not experienced that myself. But those who tell, I trust them that silence is the ultimate truth. And to seek that, I know we go through noise. And daily my studio teaches that. Daily my studio teaches that. When I finish work and when I go down, my son would watch TV loudly. There would be kitchen sounds. And the only thing I keep telling my wife is, Satam podada, don't make noise. The only thing I tell my son is, please put the volume down. Please put the volume down. For them, it is normal. For me, after coming from so much noise, I seek silence. So I just drift into my bedroom in quietness. So, and when I'm actually quiet, all through the lockdown, other things, when I'm quiet and I don't listen to anything, suddenly there is this music that happens. I'm so drawn to it, That's when you realize that it's so beautiful. Sound, silence is beautiful. It teaches you spirituality. Daily sound teaches me spirituality. Even dissonance. Even between sound and silence, if you see, silence is just one, but sound is polar, it's dual, it's multiple. There is harmony, there is disharmony. In sound, there is melody, there is noise. So, sound can be annoying, sound can be pleasing, sound can heal, sound can hurt. But with silence, I don't know. Only your mind will be busy. With silence, there's no answer. So, these kinds of thoughts come when I record. But if I talk like this to somebody else, they will say, oh, this guy is some kind of a guy, So I don't speak. You ask me a question, so I speak. Otherwise, I'm just quiet. Yeah.
Again, I love the spontaneous answer. And we all laughed, both of us, because, we enjoyed it. That
Even I'm laughing.
Yeah, that with the noises only, and there is a greater aspect, like you said, if we go deep, you understand the words, the meaning, the words, that with all the noises, with all the churning that takes place, you understand the real value of silence.
You will know the churning only after you reach silence that you are churned. When you're churning, you will never know that you're being churned. You will just keep you will think you're going somewhere or no. Because I've been churned a lot in my life. I'm not this, just because I talk on the Zoom call doesn't mean that I have some evolved thing inside me or I'm very calm, I'm very humble. No. You ask my wife or you ask some of these artists who deal with me, they have seen the darker side of mine. They have seen when somebody is with you for a very long time, they will really know, what's inside you. So, but one very beautiful thing is being in art, being in sound, makes you identify this in you. You should be able to know, okay, here I am wrong. Okay, here I have hurt this person. Okay, here, like in music, I'll tell, okay, here we need silence. Leave this. Leave one avartanam gap. We need silence. That is something that is very similar in life also. Or somebody will come and tell me, Sai, this has been going on for long. Can we just have silence? Like Malvika Sarukai, a very, very well-known dance exponent. She loves silence. She loves space. She just loves nothingness on my screen. Okay. There are so many other artists who will want maybe 50 tracks, 60 tracks of sound. She'll come and say, Sai, okay, just leave it, silence. I'll try to add something. She'll say, don't add. That's when you start to realize, okay, I've been doing this layering and my creative job in the studio, and suddenly somebody comes and says, don't do. I just like silence. And then when I go to the theater and I'm myself a witness to what we have come, that's when you realize, wow, what a vast space the silence is. And after that silence, when a sound just comes, you're like, wow, So if you can have that silence inside you, you will be able to recognize the joy that comes to you, the happiness that comes to you, and also the noise that we are a part of. So I'm also learning that through my studio.
Yeah, you mentioned about Malavika Sharukai. That was actually, we were going to ask you about that as dancers. We also wanted to hear from you how you collaborated with a dance artist, right? Like you said, I don't want to compartmentalize, but then, each art form has its own beauty, and it's a different experience. It brings us to a different experience. So we read about Tari and Looms, and how you had to record the sounds of the loom, and what kind of experience was that? Can you share more on that?
Okay, so what happened was, see, working with the dancers is a completely different experience. Okay, for them, they visualize everything, and after they visualize, they want the music to support their visualization. With some dancers, once you have the music, they can visualize the music. Some dancers can visualize and then make music for it. This is also very beautiful. So there is no one rule to it. Like today, when Malaka was in my studio, I was recording her today. This project was something which she was not doing it the way she has done it all these years. She would come so well prepared, incredibly well prepared. I mean, you would be like, wow, can actually someone actually make notes like this? It's like Elon Musk sitting and planning his Tesla project. It would be like that. You should see the paper right from the movement to the figures. That's when you realize perfection and artist. But when I work with Leela Samsonaka, she would be like, okay, just do something. It's okay. Ka, what are you going to do here? Is should I give some space? Whatever, you know. How can you compare these two? Just think, it's incredible, no? And I am in that common chair. I would see one artist incredibly well prepared, and it is so inspiring. I would be like, if I would have done 1% of that in my life, I would be somewhere, you know. And there is this other artist who would just be like, it's okay. I can do anything with what you give. And both are absolutely incredible. This is really something that I learned from dancers, you know. They can visualize and create, or they can visualize after something is created. So I learn from these two people amazing things. And with regard to Tari Loom, she told me that she's doing something on sari and blah. One very nice thing is I have a lot of trust from artists. They really like me, and I'm very, very blessed in that regard, because unless and until they trust you, they like who you are when you work, it is very, very, very difficult to get that chemistry, and they have to give me that freedom. So these artists really trust me, and they come and tell me, Sai, this is the concept, this is what I'm going to do, I want to do this, etc. I have to show the loom, I'm dancing, I'm going to show the frame of the loom, etc., etc. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but it's a beautiful work. And then she said, how can we make it different? How should the music be? I said, I don't want the music. Why don't we record the sound of the loom? And she was like, how will you record? I said, come, let's go to Kanchipuram. And she was like, I mean, do you think it's... I said, yeah, let's make beats out of whatever the... She told me, I still remember, she told me, Sai, you know, that tatak, tatak, tatak sound, you know, what rhythm it has. I said, come, let's go record. Let's see, see. Even a weaver has a rhythm. If you don't have the right rhythm, your sari is not going to get its design. It has to have a certain... Anything which is symmetry needs to have laya, needs a math. There has to be some proportion to it. So even weaving is like that, right? That's how threads come together. So I took microphones, we took a car, a taxi, we drove to... my assistant Shiva was there. We took everything, we went, and they were making pattu saris in one small house. And when I just walked around the loom, so many sounds were there. The wooden sound, the clattering sound, the pedal sound, the noise of the rusted bolts and nuts that has been working very hard for the 30 and 40 years that their generations have been making music. And then they pull something that squeaks. Then they have these nice dangling metal things that hold the thread and it holds, there's some, I don't know, it's just beautiful. It's like chimes. And when the machine moves, they give this chiming effect. So I would go under the loom and then I would just chime it with my hand and record it. So I kept recording crazy things. And then when we were coming back, she was asking me, Sai, இதை வச்சு என்ன பண்ண போற? I said, I'll do something. Who knows? We'll do something. And then she was like, wow. One very nice thing was she was very excited. And see, that excitement is a drive, no? See, an artist should have that excitement, something new. And today she told me something exceptionally nice. She said, if you confine to a boundary, you will never learn anything in your life. She said, an artist has to go out of their comfort zone and risk yourself. That's when you learn more. If you think you know this and you confine yourself, you will never understand art. She said, when you know this is what you know, you have to jump out of that. And you have to know that you don't know something. You have to attempt to know that. And then you go to the next lab. This morning she was talking to me. So these are incredible conversations, So the Tari went on like that, and we were passing by, and then she said, I also got permission in this Co-optex loom. Let us go cotton loom. I said, okay, Pola. When I saw the cotton loom, it was totally different sound. It has nothing to do with the silk loom. And there were about 30, 40 people doing tat, 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 tat. And other machine would stop, and the other machine, they would start at some other point in time, and it would go cascading. It's like two trains coming together. And when all of them come, it's like a war. When all the 30 actually do, it's like a war. It's clatter, and it's superb, So it was, I recorded the cotton loom, I recorded this thing, and I realized that I could do Chatushram with the Pattu sari thing, and I could do Tishram with the cotton sari thing. And she gave me, because the cotton loom was giving me tat, 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 tat. So I was hearing like takita, takita, and this thing was like tat, 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 was the very thing that was happening in regular intervals. So I took all the four sounds and treated it like ta, ti, tom, nam. And then அதை ஜத்தியா பண்ணினானா அந்த ஒரு சிலபிளுக்கு என்ன நோட் வச்சா அந்த ஜத்திய லூம்ல டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்ண முடியும், அதோட நேச்சுரல் என்ன அப்படின்னு சொல்லி, it took about 2-3 weeks for me to first, I recorded about 4 hours of the sound, and the final recording has about 2 minutes of it. So that's 240 minutes by 2 minutes. And in that 2 minutes, there were only about 5-6 different samples that we used. And there's this one very beautiful place where we recorded another Pattu loom in a house. And evening, the sparrows and these birds were all making noise. And it was so beautiful, There's this loom sound, and there are these small little birds in the background because the mic captures everything. So I thought I should not leave that. So that is also a part of the recording. So it's a very, I wish the recording came out, and I wish the world knew about such a work. But artists, it's her work. So it's people only who come to the performance can actually hear the work. It's a beautiful work.
So much of hard work and so much of minute details, Anna, has gone behind this. As you explain the whole thing, it's like actually watching the performance.
Yes.
Floriga, you've explained so beautifully. And in fact, our dance teacher, Srimati Jayanti Subramaniam, choreographed.
Oh, she's incredible.
She choreographed Jyotirgamaya. And the music was done by Rajkumar Bharati, and it was recorded in your studio. So came out very well. Thank you for that. And as a
that was the first recording Bharati sir sang after he lost his voice after almost 15-18 years. Jayanti Akka is so amazing. She is so incredible. If you want to talk about humility, you talk about her. So nice, and she would quietly sit behind. She would not even sit in my chair. in my studio, there are chairs in the back. She would remove all the chairs and she would sit in one corner, only observing. And when she wants something, that is the only time she'll open her mouth and say, this is what I want. So you need a lot of composure and maturity to be like that, because in the studio, you cannot come and act, you can do it in public. In the studio, your job has to get done. So if something is not right, it's going to get recorded. So you better fix it. So she's incredible. And we actually wanted to have somebody else sing it. And sir was just singing the track. She was so moved by his emotion. She said, sir, only you're going to sing it. And so magnanimous. And sir also sang in that. And I will never forget that recording. It's brilliant.
Thank you, Anna. It is wonderful to hear it from you. So as one last question, what is your message to youngsters?
Seek. What I see with the younger generation is there is no seeking. There is a difference between seeking and being excited. I see a lot of these youngsters excited, wanting for recognition, wanting for doing something so that they feel very happy, and being recognized really makes them feel very nice. And I'm seeing that is stopping them from going more deeper and maturer into art.
True.
And this is not a generic statement, it's truth that I'm seeing. They have to listen, they have to open up, and whatever, they are more than welcome to do anything that they want. And social media is there, it can really make you big. You're no more dependent on these newspapers to talk good about you. You can reach 1 million people much faster than newspapers. So all those are great enablers. I'm very happy actually for the younger generation who is able to achieve. Like, it took me 16 years for me to come on a Zoom interview to be actually somebody recognizes you and they ask you a question and they value you. It took me 16 years. Someone who is just plunged into art can make their own YouTube videos and reach out to millions of people. So it's a great way to have modern technology and social media to help you. But unfortunately, seeking is dying. Seeking perfection, seeking learning from other people, the thirst for search is gone. There is information abundance on YouTube. You want to see Padma Subramaniam Akka, she is there on YouTube. You want to see Hari Prasad Chaurasia, she is there on YouTube. You want to see Chitra Akka, she is there on YouTube. You want to see Zakir Hussain, she is there on YouTube. When I was there, when I knew Zakir Bhai was coming to Chennai to play, there would be an ad in Hindu paper, in music, dance, drama column. And you would run to Music Academy to buy the 50 rupee ticket and wait for that day and cherish that 1 hour concert that will remain inside you for years. In YouTube today, you listen to a concert, you're bored, you skip the next tracks. Information abundance, it's pollution. It's worse than plastic pollution, So there is so much information that you don't actually hold on to something and learn from one thing. So I really wish the youngsters realize, I don't blame them, because see, they are not exposed to that, what I had experienced. Not that I'm very, very old. I'm kind of a bridge between the older generation and the younger generation, but I'm able to see the parity. There is a huge lack of seeking. And spirituality is one's journey. You cannot compare. People who are modern and people who are incredibly talented nowadays and the youngsters could be probably more spiritual than traditional people. So I have nothing to comment on that, because it's a very personal journey and they could be even more evolved than what we judge them to be. But the fact of the matter is the seeking is dying in art. Holding on to one little thing and trying to practice that or to learn from that and remember that is kind of missing. They are jumping. One guru, you learn this. Oh, that guru is good in that, I'll go there. This guru is good in this, I'll go there. Because at the end of the day, they want to do something by themselves. But that's not art. So I really wish seeking is given more importance. Yeah.
Perfect message. And I can't agree better. Very true. So we can't thank you enough for your readiness to come and participate, and especially in your busy schedule. Thank you so much. And
I have been very free, just that now things have opened up and I do a 9 to
Yeah,
6
I thought
recording.
we were like, in the recording, it's a busy December season, and thank you so much. And as a token of love and gratitude to all the great work that you're doing in the world in the field of music and dance, Himalayan School would like to honor you with a certificate of honor.
Oh, wow.
I'll just share my screen and read it out. Himalayan School of Traditional Dance, the certificate of honor presented to Sri Sai Shravanam in recognition of his many stellar achievements and unique creative contributions to the world of fine arts, music, and dance. This
My namaskarams. Thank you.
is from Mohanji.
My namaskaram. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for joining us today. I'm sure this interview is going to inspire a lot of people. Thank you very much. Namaskaram.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sai